everyone. In this episode of the Quantum Human Summit series, we are with a multidimensional leader, TJ Woodward, and we're talking about conscious creation. Now, TJ is a remarkable person who has come up with a recovery solution. He helps people overcome the traumas and recovery from addiction and all of the density that we need to break through. So as we're talking about multidimensional awareness, it is overcoming trauma and addictions and all the density that truly holds us back, including belief systems. So here we are today. We're going to be talking about conscious creation and 5 steps to embrace the life of your dreams. Let's meet TJ Woodward. Hi, TJ. Welcome.
Thank you, Lauren. Hi, it's so good to be back here with you again. I'm so excited about our conversation, and I love the theme of this summit, and I'm just really grateful to be here.
Well, we are grateful to have you because, as I was mentioning, it is our journey to become whole again and to remember the light that we are. And there's density that we go through, and we've seen so many that get stuck and are unable to clean it up and to deal with it, to process it. So that is your work. How do you help people overcome their trauma and addictions? You're an expert at this.
Oh, thank you. You know, it starts with a foundational principle, and it's so in alignment with what you're saying. My model conscious recovery, which isn't exactly what we're talking about today, but the foundation of conscious recovery is underneath all addictive behavior is an essential self that is whole and perfect. And what makes this model, I mean, to you and I don't know that this would sound, this is like, of course, that's true. But in many circles, that's revolutionary to imagine that the person with the addiction actually isn't a broken or damaged human. They're an infinite being that came into the world as such. But then, as you mentioned, you know, we get programmed by the world to believe we're limited or that we're lacking in some way or that we're damaged or broken. So many of the recovery models start with, okay, you're broken. Now, how do we fix you? And I'm saying, wait a minute. You're not broken. You're a whole and complete being underneath all of that. And because you have believed you were broken, of course, you started looking outside of yourself to assuage that sense of emptiness. We could also call that an addiction, right? Anything outside of ourselves that we start to use repetitively. And of course, we don't really call it an addiction until it starts to cause problems. Otherwise, we just call it fun.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Okay. And so, as someone, making someone realize their authentic light, and when they don't see it because of the trauma, the buried trauma that maybe is stuffed inside and really needs to come forward, what is it that you do to help them identify that light? And how quickly, I mean, is it instantaneous that they can, but then how do they hold
Yeah.
that connection to the light?
Well, you're asking the big question for us all, whether we classify ourselves as someone who has had an addiction or not. We might have a momentary awareness of our true nature, right? A spontaneous insight, a recognition of the truth of who we are. Some would call it a spiritual experience where we feel into or experience the truth of who we are. And then we might spend, you know, the next 20 years trying to figure out what just happened and or how to actually integrate that into our lives. So it's kind of a both and answer. I mean, in some ways, we can have that instantaneous shift and that awareness of who we really are. And then in addition to that, we really get to, and I say get to, spend however long it takes unlearning or moving beyond all the layers that we've put on top of our light. So it's really kind of a twofold process, making connection or remembering the truth of who we are, and then also pretty much unlearning most everything most of us got taught on planet Earth. It is not the truth of who we are.
Yeah, and you know what? That goes across the board for every human, unless it's someone who came in really awake and didn't buy into any of the programming. But for the majority of us, this is really good work for all of us to encompass and embrace. So, as we're talking about conscious creation and creating a life of our dreams, you have come up with a very interesting process as well. And so for all of us, no matter what, it really is this connection to ourself and getting rid of that programming, what we call BS, the belief systems, the
That's right.
false belief systems.
Yeah.
Tell us about conscious creation.
Yeah, so Conscious Creation is my third book. It came out a couple of years ago, and I have been in on my own journey of moving from unconscious to conscious creation, and also through my coaching, through my spiritual communities I've been part of, helping people reignite the truth of who they are. And then, as you mentioned, moving beyond the programs, right? So I've given it a clever acronym, MOVIE, MOVIE, as this five-step process. And the premise is profoundly simple. We're holding a projector. And of course, most of us watching this know this already. We're holding the projector and we're projecting onto a blank canvas, and we call it reality. And the issue for many of us, and I love Byron Katie says, if there's a piece of lint on that lens of your projector, you see it everywhere and think it's happening in the world. But really, conscious creation is about clearing that lens. And that's why the first two steps, M and O, are both what I call clearing steps so that we can move beyond these programs and start to consciously create our life instead of just being run by the unconscious programs.
All right, so let's go into it a little bit more because this is a fascinating topic. And as we all get used to being conscious, we can start to see things in our life that were created from the unconscious.
Yeah.
And so that kind of is what makes it not so fun, right? When we say, wow, why are we in this situation? Why am I in this situation? Oh, it's because I did it unconsciously.
Mhm.
So what do you have to say about that? Because if we're becoming conscious, how do we do that? I mean, do you have a tip or a practice to really be present?
Yeah, I mean, you're speaking to kind of the foundation of these first two steps, M and O, which is making peace with the past and overcoming core false beliefs. The idea here is what you're saying is many of us, I'll put it in that way, many of us are walking around unconsciously creating our life, but we don't even know we're doing it, right? I'm just a victim to the world, and I spent many, many years thinking the world was happening to me. And at that stage, I think what you're speaking to is at that stage where I start to realize, oh no, I've been the chooser. Oh no, I've been the creator. There's a tendency at that moment, and we want to be really clear. We don't want to go into blaming ourselves because that's a tendency. It's like, oh my gosh, I've been creating this. What have I been doing wrong? And I had this great teacher that said to me, look at your bank account. Has it been the same for decades? Is it less than you want it to be? I want you to say, look how powerful I am that I keep creating this small bank account. Now, now that you're aware that you're the creator of it, you can uncreate that and start to create something new. And that's just an example on using money because it's very tangible. It could be love, it could be connection, it could be fulfillment. Anything in our life where we keep re-experiencing things over and over again, it's an opportunity to become aware. A wise teacher once said there are three steps: awareness, awareness, and awareness.
Yes, awareness, I would say, is such a huge part. I would say, some would say maybe 80% of the work, but I would even say maybe it's
Yeah.
95% of the work. Okay, so making peace with the past and overcoming core false beliefs. Those first two steps of your movie protocol or your movie acronym is where we begin. Then the next three steps, go into those because that's where it really shifts, where we become proactive, right?
Yeah, so VIE is visioning, intention setting, and embodying the vision. And I, of course, want to spend time talking about that. And I think it's also important that we acknowledge the reason I start with M and O, making peace with the past and overcoming core false beliefs, is I have worked with so many people that want to start with those intentions or they want to start with that vision board. You know, it's January 1st and I'm going to create these new resolutions. but I'm not really going to address what's happening in the subconscious or the unconscious. And you and I know that no matter how much work we do in the outer realm, if we haven't done work in the inner realm, we're just going to go back to the same old pattern. So that's why I start with those clearing steps. And yeah, I love talking about all five of them, but those three that you mentioned, the last three, if you will, that's where it starts to get exciting because that's where we start to realize that we don't have to be run by the unconscious programs. We actually can consciously create the life we want to live.
Good. All right. So tell us how you move through this then, because it would seem that there's so many false belief systems. Like we have so much judgment. Like judgment is totally different from a false belief systems, but how do we completely overcome all of those belief systems? Um, what has happened in your life? Because that seems like such a huge challenge.
Yeah, so here's the great news. Uh, I'm going to ask it as a question. What if the goal isn't about getting rid of the thoughts? What if the goal isn't about changing the narrative? What if it's realizing that they might be there, but they no longer have to have power over us? That's why I use the term overcoming core false beliefs rather than letting go of core false beliefs. When I first started this 5-step process, when it was coming to me, I'd started with forgiveness. And then I did letting go of core false beliefs. First of all, that's not a very easy acronym to pronounce, FLVIE. But more than that, I started becoming aware of how many people were saying things like, I should forgive them. I should forgive myself. I should let go of these ideas about myself. And I started becoming aware that in some ways we're doing a number on ourselves by thinking we should, right? Anytime we're shoulding on ourselves, we hear that a lot. But
Mhm.
it's really, rather than saying, I should forgive, I might say, regardless of what has happened, regardless of what I have done, is it possible for me to make peace with that? When it comes to these core false beliefs, is it possible for me to think, I don't necessarily need to let it go? I just need to overcome it. I need to realize I am so much more than my thoughts. And then we start to enter this beautiful part of life where we start playing with, like, if I'm not my thoughts, who and what am I? I'm more than that. I'm a spirit. I'm an essence. I'm a being. And that beingness, when we're tapping into that beingness, the beliefs just lose their power. We don't have to necessarily change the narrative or let go of the ideas we have about ourselves. To me, that's really exciting.
Yes, and that's very empowering and very nurturing for ourselves because, again, the judgment would be to really be hard on ourselves and to go into despair or embarrassment or shame or guilt. And I love that we can make peace with it. And so, making peace with it, that even seems maybe better than forgiveness
Yeah.
because I mean, forgiveness is very important and we can forgive ourselves, but making the peace with it
Yeah.
will eliminate the judgment, right? And so when you are tapping into your beingness, what is your protocol for that? Is it as simple as just taking a few breaths or what are you doing?
Well, what is interesting about my experience and so many people I know is it's not as much about how do I access that pure being. It's more about, as Rumi said, my job is not to seek for love, but to remove all the barriers I've put, I think he said, on top of it. It's been a few years, so I'm sure it's been reinterpreted over the years. But the idea is that that essential beingness is the truth of who and what we are. So as we start to do, and the reason that forgiveness is such a loaded word is you named it so perfectly. Forgiveness has a lot of judgment in it. This person was bad or wrong, and I need to forgive them, or I did this thing that was so horrible, but I need to find a way to forgive myself. And what you're saying, I think, and what I love is when we move beyond judgment, we start to move into curiosity. What would it be like for me to make peace with this, regardless of what happened? Because how many times have we heard someone say, well, I can't forgive them. You're telling me I'm going to condone that behavior. We're talking about shifting our consciousness to saying that happened. Can I make peace with it? Because it really is less about what happened and more what I decided about myself that creates that reality based on the traumatic event. So when we overcome these core false beliefs, we start to naturally, and that's a very long-winded way of saying the experience of knowing who and what we are becomes a natural way of being when we start to do this making peace and overcoming. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm coming home. It's not about attaining something. It's like, oh my gosh, I remember this is who I am.
Oh, if the majority of the people on this planet really get that, there would be no wars.
Exactly.
Everyone would feel at peace. Okay, that's a whole nother topic, but this is one heart at a time that we're making this change on the planet. And
Right.
so I love what you said there about, what I decided about myself. When we, judge ourselves, then that is what creates the thoughts. So if we're feeling bad about ourselves or regretting things that we did, that's going to create those thoughts that loop in our head, right? That small voice within us, or sometimes it could be a loud voice within us, which is a super critical voice that's always saying, you are never going to, you're not, who are you? Right. So we're criticizing ourselves. So that's a really key step, is to really surrender and let go of that.
Yeah.
When you're working with clients, what how fast does that happen for some? Um, what are some of the struggles that keep people from that?
My early teacher would say to me, you don't have to let go of this belief forever. Just see if you can do it for the rest of today. And if you notice yourself having the thought, you can say, oh, yeah, I'm moving beyond that just for today. And then we start to actually have the felt sense. And that's, if we're looking at brain science, we're creating new neural pathways every time we have a different thought. But really, this work is much deeper than just thought. The thought is an outpicturing of an energy that we're holding about ourselves. Because the truth is, life is energy and life is frequency, right? I think it was Tesla who said, if you want to talk about the future, you have to talk in terms of energy and frequency. And I don't know if he meant what we're talking about with energy and frequency, but in my experience, let's say, someone has a traumatic event at 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old. As a really small child, we bury this stuff really deeply, and our brains aren't even developed enough to say, oh, I must be broken. We just start feeling broken or damaged. And then that becomes like an energetic operating system that we are walking around in the world vibrating with, and we keep replicating. So when we come into models that say change our thinking, like you said, and I love it, it's like it could take us, a 40 years to learn how to have different thoughts, but we can have an instantaneous awareness of the energy that's attached to that thought, and then go back to when we were a small child. And this is where it's really exciting to me. We can, in some ways, actually change the past, not because we change what happened, but we change the decision we made about ourselves. Because I was 5 years old and literally decided I was stupid at a very, very young age. And it was something that just became part of my being. And that was the operating system. So it wasn't like trying to convince myself I'm smart enough now. It was like, go back and hold that 5-year-old in a tender place, allow him to feel what wasn't felt before. And then we can start to have different decisions. And then we start noticing our frequency changes. A lot of times we hear raise your vibration. We don't have to raise our vibration. We tap into the true vibration of that we are underneath it all. So as we start to make peace, as we start to overcome the core false beliefs, we start to tune into that original frequency, and then we become vibrant beings. And then it's the law of radiance, not the law of attraction. Game changer, totally different.
Talk more about the law of radiance. That's
Yeah. So
wonderful.
when we commonly now think, or it's commonly talked about as that we are attracting situations to our lives based on our energy or our frequency. And on some level, that's true. When we go a little deeper, or maybe a lot deeper, depending, We say, actually, I'm not attracting things, I am choosing. And that's so much more empowering. Now, if situations are difficult, we don't want to go into blame. We already talked about that. We want to go into curiosity and say, oh, when I remember who I am, then there's this luminosity that gets created. We're kind of jumping ahead because that's kind of the E, that embodying the vision. It's like holding that energy. And then life seems to respond to that. But I actually think it's always been available. There's so much love in the world. I'm the one that has blocked it because I was afraid to love or I was afraid to be loved. So as we do these clearing steps, we start to realize, oh my gosh, life, my friend Dr. Sue Morter says life is difficult and a struggle until it isn't. And that's that moment. Oh, wow, I'm an infinite being. And then suddenly it's like, wow, I'm starting to be in relationships with people who are confirming this new vibration rather than that old one.
That is really wonderful and transformational, and I love it. So
Thank
remembering when I remember who I am, as you said, it's an instantaneous vibration that dissolves all of the discourse, the density, and that is our true power. And so thank you for sharing on the law of radiance.
Yeah,
And stepping ahead in our steps, there are two steps that are important as well: visioning and intention setting.
yeah,
And again, we're talking the energetics of this, because
right.
if we can see it, what is the phrase? If we believe it, then we'll see it,
That's
rather
right.
than I'll see, when I see it, I'll believe it. We have to flip that. And
Yeah,
so this is something about metaphysics. It goes way back, even Neville Goddard talked about this. But this is really interesting. Some people say, don't set goals, that's not necessary. But you're saying intention setting. So let's
yeah,
go over the V and the I in your 5-letter acronym and talk
yeah.
about visioning and intention setting.
Thank you. Yeah. And I want to start by saying visioning and visualization are very different things. Visualization is I decide what I want and I hold that, the energy of that which I desire, and it manifests. And I think it works. It has worked for me. Visioning is something that's actually deeper than that. And I always want to give credit where credit's due. I use the practice set forth by my friend Michael Beckwith, life visioning process. I love what he's created. Why would I ever want to add or change that? Because it's so beautiful. Visioning, in some ways, is the opposite of visualization. It's not deciding what I want and holding a picture of that which I desire. It's, to the best of our ability, releasing and moving beyond any ideas of what I think I want. And this is why I think people say things like, we don't want to do goal setting. And so for me, it's like, let's start with, yeah, letting go of all the goals, going into a quiet place, because a reminder, we've done these clearing steps, and now we have more access to our infinite being. Michael's meditation process that he's built that's so powerful is you go into this silence, you consciously open your heart, and then you dedicate yourself to receptivity. In other words, we don't go in thinking, I know what I want to manifest. We go in thinking, I wonder what it's going to be. And his questions that I use, that I've adopted, are so powerful. Once we get into the silence, we ask, what's the highest possibility for my life today? Or you can ask, what's the highest possibility for this relationship? You can do it with your partner. What's the highest relationship for this organization? I've done this with spiritual centers. You ask that question, and then you ask, how must I grow in consciousness in order to fulfill this vision? And what must I release in order to fulfill this vision? And I think you can do those in either order, honestly. And then the last one is, what are my unique skills and talents that will help fulfill the vision? The reason this is so important in my life and why I want to just share it with everyone is it's so different than visualization. Visioning has created things in my life that I never could have conceived of in my mind.
Mm.
place of emptiness, place of receptivity, because we're asking intuition and inner wisdom to guide us. We're asking the spiritual room to guide us, not my thoughts. And as we get these insights and these intuitions, then we ask these questions, and then we start to develop a relationship with our intuitive nature that is really different than I know what I think I want and I'm going to manifest it. It's a very different way of being.
That is wonderful. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, and then we move into the intention setting, but I don't know if we want to move there yet. But
I just love this. So, all right, let's go into this just a little bit more.
yeah,
The difference between visualization, we're also familiar with that whole that vision of your bank account having an extra zero in it, for
right.
example.
Or two.
Yeah, two or three, that'd be good, right? But then let's talk about the difference here, because it seems more when we're visioning, then it's more of creating it's more like it's creating the most optimal timeline. It's like creating something so much better than just, again, what you said, it's not just our thoughts of what we want, but it's from the heart, and it's the spiritual realm that you said. So I
That's
just
right.
wanted to recover that, because that's really powerful, and how responsible it is to be a mature adult with that visioning process,
Yeah,
to care about others, to care about our planet.
yeah.
I just want to have you share anything about that, because that's really important. It's huge, I think.
Yeah, the visioning process is coming from allowing, there's an Indian proverb that says we're a house with four rooms: physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. And we're allowing the spiritual room to lead the way instead of the mental room or the physical room, right? Like the physical room would be like, I'm just going to crush it. I'm going to go out and make it happen. The intellectual room would be, I'm going to change my thinking. The emotional room might be like, I'm going to spend time in my heart and see what it has to show me. All of them are important. And when for many of us, we have to flip it from what we're used to. And when we put the spiritual room in charge, if you will, then we spiritualize our emotions, we spiritualize our thoughts, and we spiritualize our physical awareness. And all of this comes to something that you mentioned that's so important. In my experience, 100% of the time I've done visioning, it's always been bigger than what I would have imagined, but it also is about more than just me. It's always about how can I serve? How can I make a difference on the planet? How can we take care of planet Earth? All the things that you mentioned. And then that becomes this beautiful experience of yes, manifesting, but in a really different way because we're more on purpose. We each have a unique blueprint. We get to use whatever personality we have to be in the world and make a difference.
This is fascinating. It moves us beyond, I want to say, selfish wishes for us. And
Yeah.
again, like you said, in the bigger picture, do you have some examples of some of the ways that when you visioned, it became bigger than you could even imagine?
I wrote about it in Conscious Creation, and it's a true story, and I absolutely love this story, not because it's so cool for me, but it's so cool for knowing how much vision, how powerful visioning can be. So I had a spiritual community. I started in 2012 in San Francisco, and it was a small spiritual community, and our common friend Karsten Spencer was involved with that in some ways, and we were visioning at one point about 4 years into it, and I just kept getting Michael Beckwith in my visions, and I hadn't met him yet. I just kept getting these visions. Then I started having these dreams where Michael was like picking me up in his convertible and saying, "Get in, we're going for a ride." And I thought, what is all of this? And I remember thinking, wow, like I don't know him, but that feels bigger than what I'm doing in this little community that I have, which was also really, really fulfilling. And during that visioning process, he reached out to us and asked if we wanted to be the first satellite community of the Agape movement. And I never reached out to him or asked. I just found he was just coming up in these visions. And my good friend Joan Stedman, Reverend Joan Stedman, is a friend of his. So I did have that connection, but I hadn't even met him yet. And he caught in his meditations to invite us to be the first satellite of agape. So that is such a powerful example. Like, if I would have tried to like make that happen, or like, how am I going to meet Michael, or how am I going to pitch to him that we want to be part of his movement? No, that was dictated from this spiritual room. And then he caught it and reached out to us. So that's just one example. I have so many that I could give, but that's a really powerful one.
Yes, I love that because again, it goes back to the concept. I want to say, for example, a new way of being is being in the heart. And when we're in the heart, or when we're living our dream work on the planet, or what we want to be on the planet, we're not doing it like to make money. For example, if someone leaves their job and they're going to go create their new earth business, they're not going to say, I'm doing it for the money. We're doing it for the service. That's what you were doing. Can you share a little bit more about what it was, how you were holding the container of your vision that was so expansive? Because you're in here, your intuition and your dream space started to show you how it could expand, and it brought you that beautiful relationship
Yeah,
with that being, but you didn't go out and actively think it.
that's
So
right.
what was the energy in the container that you were holding for your vision?
Well, if anyone who's watching right now is type A like I am, as soon as I catch a vision, I think I need to jump right into the action. And vision, the intention of vision is to catch the vision and, like you said, just hold it, to be curious. Like, if I would have caught a vision and then tried to reach out to him, that would have been a different energy than like, oh, it's interesting because I kept seeing like this room full of diverse people from diverse backgrounds and spiritually diverse, and like this intense energy. And when I walked into Agape the first time, I'm like, this is literally what I was catching in vision. Like, this was the felt sense. This is what it looked like and felt like. So the big key to it, and this is where it takes a little bit of, Michael calls it discipline, but a little bit of discipline to say, I'm not going to take action yet. I'm going to sit in this, because you don't want to immediately go from a vision to an action plan. You want to give it some time. Oh, that's interesting that this keeps coming up. Oh, that's interesting that this keeps coming up. And so lately I've been catching a vision of someone else that I want to connect with. I'm not going to name her, but I feel it. And so I'm going to let that sit, not take action, and then just see what happens. And it's those connections that then allow us. So for me, it allows us to have a way to be more on purpose, to help more people. It's really not ultimately about like me and mine and what I want to get, but the byproduct or the paradox is, as soon as I'm in that, all my needs are taken care of. I like what Michael says: when you catch the vision, you will have everything you need to fulfill the vision within you and outside of you. The universe will show up to support the vision when we trust that vision. So for some of us, it's like, I woke up and I didn't trust. What do I do? Go back to the felt sense, go back to the frequency, see if we can not try to figure out how it's going to manifest, but be like, let me feel the energy of this, because that's actually what creates reality. It's really not the thoughts. And I know that's pushing up against some of our programs, but thoughts don't really create reality. The frequency does. And the thoughts are connected to that frequency.
Wow. Okay. Yes. The thoughts are creating our feelings. And what you're doing with this process is you're going right to the feeling through that spiritual room and putting that in the forefront. And I love how you did mention trust, because when we sit in that feeling first and we give it time, our brain, our mind is going to jump in and say, yeah, let's go into action and do it. That just seems like a big step for people, a big step. And trust is so important there,
Yeah.
that we have to trust that it's going to come about. And I want to reiterate what you said. It's the vibration, it's energy. And so, because we're in that energy, and like you talked about earlier, the thought will then disappear. The thoughts of, I should be doing this or whatever, we're just going to be in that energy and we're going to trust that energy. Again, this is something that we're not used to doing.
Yeah.
And I hope when we get done talking about these next few steps, I hope you can lead us in a little process where we can go through this with
Sure.
something in our lives that we want to envision and hold. All
Yeah.
right, really very important. When you're talking about the energy, then that also goes to the fifth step, the E, embodying your vision.
That's
But
right.
we don't want to get there just yet because the intention setting. Now tell us about intention setting because this is different than goal creation.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really important for some of us. Like I said, I'm someone that wants to jump right into the action step. So I've had to learn how to pause. For other people, I know people who want to just sit in the vision for like 4 years and not take the action, right? So for some of us, it's learning how to move into intention more quickly. For some of it's about learning how to be more, not necessarily patient, but more just open to feeling into the vision before we move into the action step. So that's going to be, in some ways we get to practice that, and that's where like individual coaching can come in. But the intention setting process, my friend Gregory Spencer, he's amazing. I asked him one time, "Do you have a process you like about goal setting or intention setting?" He said, "Well, I'm glad you asked." And he gave me this very simple formula, which now I've adopted into the conscious creation process. Intention setting: you create intentions based on what you received in the visioning process. And then you have certain intentions that you set. So you create a specific date, and this will be familiar for a lot of people because a lot of models are similar. You create a date that this intention is manifested. You put down that date, and then you make sure that the intention is specific, measurable, realistic, but a stretch. So specific, measurable, realistic, but a stretch. So one example of this, when I first started doing this, I started doing this process, I believe in 2010. Um, and I knew I wanted to write a book. And so I set this date somewhere around 2012. I set the date. I'm going to publish my first book June 1st, 2015. It was just what came to me in vision. So I put my first book is published on June 1st, 2015. And then that intention, then you look at what perceived obstacles you have about that intention, and then your strategies for overcoming the obstacles. You can give yourself a couple affirmations, perhaps. But the key here is then this is where to me, it's magic. And it really isn't magic, but it really feels like magic. Um, you create action items every week that point to the intention. So for me, what I do now is I do every 6 months, I do about 5 or 6 intentions, and I write them, and you write them, specific, measurable, realistic, but a stretch, and always in the it's already happened language, which most of us watching this already know about conscious language. So we wouldn't say, "I'm going to write my first book by," or "my first book will be published." We say, "My first book is published by," or "My first book was published on." So you write it in the affirmative. And then these action steps, and this is what's important, you get an accountability partner. And for me, what I do is I do 10 action steps every week. And I've done this religiously since 2010 or 2011 when I first started. And remarkable results start to happen because we're in not the big picture of when they're like, "Okay, what can I do today? What can I do this week?" And so I send these every week to the person that's my accountability partner, and it's Gregory who gave me this process. And then he responds with, "Congratulations on doing 6 out of 10." And then you take the 4 you didn't do and roll them to the next week and add 6 more. It's so simple. It's almost like my mind, it's too simple for my mind to even grasp. But I remember when I first started doing it, I shifted from, "Oh, I should email her," to, "Oh, I just did it. I just did a simple email and we don't know where it's going to lead." And I'm thinking about emailing my friend Krista. And then 3 months later, that led to this incredible job, which led to me writing Conscious Recovery. So it was like we're planting those seeds through these action steps every week.
I really do love that. And the fact that you can roll it over
Yeah.
is a relief,
Yeah.
relief pressure. And so the action steps, again, it's just like it could be big or small. It could, like you said, it was just one email, one
One.
little reach out. And it actually probably made you feel pretty good when you did those action steps.
It really did. And full transparency, when I first started, I would, I emailed him every Monday morning. I would be on Monday morning, I'd wake up and be like, oh my gosh, I have to finish these because I told him I'd email him every Monday at 10, right? So like sometimes I would just rapid fire, like, let me check these off the list. But that was really different than, oh, I know I need to email her, right? Which could go on for months. But
Yeah.
this was like, oh, it's Monday morning, I'll just send the email. That was easy. And then we start to, like you said, I feel lighter. I feel like, wow, I'm accomplishing this. Because we so many times we get stuck on the end goal, like, oh, when am I going to get my book published? And that seems daunting, even to me saying it. But like, you know, hiring this developmental editor, reaching out to three people who have written books and having coffee with them. These are really simple things that we can do that continue the trajectory toward our goals and our intentions.
Wow. Okay. Feeling good about that. Now, an accountability partner, could that be, it's a necessity because it makes you show up. If someone doesn't have an accountability partner, they could probably be their own accountability partner, but then that's where it's so easy to forget it and throw our hands up and
Yeah,
not do it, right?
yeah.
So this could be like your best friend, your brother, a relative, someone that's just going to receive your email and take a look at it. And what do you do in that? Say, here's my 10 intentions, and I did this. Yes, no, yes, 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 no.
Exactly. And you want to make sure whoever your accountability partner is always going to say congratulations. So like I've had a week where I did 3 out of 10 and Gregory said, congratulations on 3. How wonderful is that? Right? There's never like,
Like,
because my mind would be like, I only did 3. Right?
yeah, that is what I'm saying. You could throw your hands up and just say, okay, forget it. It's not worth it. So the accountability partner, I love that. I think that's a really good one
Yeah.
and really important. So your friend or the accountability partner doesn't mind getting your email or,
Well, he loves it because he's at a point in his life where he realizes one of the most important, one of his, and he says this himself, one of his awarenesses that he values so highly is helping others help themselves. He is aware that that's a value that really feeds him. So he said for him receiving it and offering that feedback is really beneficial to him as well. And so that's what starts to happen, right? We start finding these people that are like, oh no, it's not a burden at all to receive this. It actually really helps me because I'm clear that my purpose is to help others help themselves. And he's been that person for me over the last almost 15 years.
wow. I know that many watching and listening to this are really feeling that that is a call that they can step up and do for their friends. Accountability partners, everyone. How cool is that? That is one way to really step up and be in service.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Anything else you want to say about intention setting? Because that was really good, really powerful.
Thank you. I laid it out in the course that we're offering and also in the workbook. So it's very, very detailed. It's probably better to look at it and see the outline of it. And it's something that when practiced, it just becomes an automatic thing. So like I'm always aware. And I just randomly chose 10. I do 10 action items every week. For some, it might be 5, right? But it's consistent. It's been this way. Literally, it's 2010 or 2011. I can't remember exactly when we started the process, but that I've been doing it every Monday. Every Monday I do this. And, it feels really good when there's like 5 weeks in a row that are 10 out of 10. And sometimes it's 3 out of 10. And I celebrate the 3. So this is where it becomes tangible and always important to remember that the intentions, the action items come from the intentions and the intentions come from vision. That's the important part, not what we think we want. It's very, very different.
And so your process for this, do you sit in meditation? Do you just be quiet? Again, you're in that vision, right? So you're holding your vision. And so then that comes and sets the intentions and
Yeah.
you're quiet. So it's meditation.
For me, it's meditation. The formal visioning process absolutely is a meditative process. And again, I would highly recommend you get Michael's because you can get his Michael Beckwith. You can get his there's a course that you can have him guide you through it, which his voice is so powerful and his consciousness. So it's a meditative practice where you ask yourself these questions and then you sit with that. And after sitting that for a while, you get to discern for yourself when it's time to move to the action steps. And like I said, for some of us, it's like slow down, take time in the visions. For others, it's like, okay, I need to take action now. This is the next right step is to take action. So when we get that message that it's time to go into the intention setting, then we can do that formal, very tangible process of intention setting.
All right, I love it. And you again remove the pressure of having to really be in the mind and do it because again, it's from that vibration. It's
Yeah,
the vibration of the vision that the intentions and the action steps will be revealed. So
that's
I
right.
think that's really cool. Now, the last step, we talked a little bit about embodying the vision, but talk more about this.
Yeah, so embodying the vision, a lot of times we hear, and it's true, that we want to hold that which we want to manifest, and then the universe will respond. And that's still true, but a little bit deeper than that, we want to always go back to the purpose, the mission, right? The vision. And for me, like, whether it's a spiritual community or conscious recovery that I've created now, when I get caught in the like, why isn't this doing this or what's going on in the world? I don't go into like, how do I take more action? I go into like, how do I return to the energy or the frequency of all those who will be served? How can I go back to the actual deep mission? Some would say, remember your why, which I think is important. Why am I really doing this? Is it to make a bunch of money? Sure, money can be great, but if that's the only thing we're doing, we know we're not going to be deeply satisfied, not long term. But when we couple that, like it's okay to desire money, but when we couple it with a vision, a deep vision of like an actual purpose that we're on, returning to that, then spending time in the silence. So for me, it's like when in doubt, go back into the silence and spend more time asking the questions. We can always go through and do the visioning process again and really get new insights that will create new intentions and action items.
Wow, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing because I just want to share a little story. When I was given the vision of New Earth One Network, I
Mm,
did it through meditation. But what we're learning here today with the conscious creation process brings in so many more steps that I'm actually excited to go back to that because in reality sometimes we can get burned out or we can feel frustrated like you said and we just return back to it, go back to that why or that original mission of the vision.
yeah,
And so you're really helping all of us because that is new earth. We do create new earth from our heart, and
yeah,
this is our intuition. This is our higher self speaking through us. This is like living our soul purpose. Do
that's
you
right.
know that's one of the biggest questions we get here? How do I know my soul purpose?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
do you have to say about that? If someone asks you about a soul purpose, would you direct them here to this conscious creation process?
I mean, of course, because I it's been so useful for me. I mean, I put this together through my own experience, but and I would say purpose is often viewed in our culture as an activity or an action. And purpose really is much different than that to me. Purpose is really a quality. Who have I come here to be, not what have I come here to do? And when we
Yeah.
get in touch with the being, the doing becomes a natural outpicturing of it. That's how I've laid out the conscious creation process and hope that the mind can understand that. But it's always going back to being, always going back. And yes, it's the emotional heart. And in addition to that, it's that deeper sense of beingness. So always awareness, awareness, awareness. When do I get my best awareness? When I'm in the silence, when I'm spending dedicated time connecting with the breath, going into that place of receptivity, and then being curious. That
Mhm.
really, to me, because purpose, yeah, we all think, I'm supposed to do something to feel like I'm on purpose, but really it's who have I come here to be?
I love that. I really do. It feels so good. We have a few minutes here. We're going to talk about ways that people can work deeper with you in this process. But can you take us into a stillness, a frequency that we can reach for to begin to cultivate this vision within ourselves?
Yeah, I'm not going to do a full visioning process because that takes a little time. What I will do is just a brief example, a guided meditation for us to get in touch with our essential beingness. So
Perfect.
just like a 5-minute process, is that okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so I just invite each of us at this moment to take a moment, move within, gently close your eyes if it's available to you and feels right. And we just take a few moments focusing on the breath, becoming aware that with each inhale and exhale, we allow ourselves to settle in more deeply. I'm going to walk us through a brief check-in with the 4 rooms that I mentioned, starting with checking in with the physical room. So we start with our physical surroundings. Just notice how it feels to be in whatever space you're in, noticing any sounds you're hearing. If there are other people with you, noticing their energy level. If you're alone, just asking yourself the question, what am I noticing right now? And then we shift awareness inward, starting to check in with our physical self, our bodies. Just noticing if there's any place you're holding tension. And if there is, can you give yourself permission to relax, allowing your shoulders to drop, relaxing the muscles in your face, really allowing yourself to sink into wherever you're sitting or standing, knowing that you're supported and that it's safe to let go. Shifting our awareness to the intellectual or mental room, we become aware of the activity of our minds at this moment, meeting it with curiosity. Isn't it interesting that my mind is doing that right now? In other words, playing with the knowing that we have thoughts, but we're not our thoughts. And just notice what that creates. Allowing those thoughts to come and go. Dropping down into our heart space, becoming aware of the emotional inner landscape. We just take a few moments to lean in to whatever sensation is present in your heart, whatever emotion is there. Just for a few moments, lean in and experience whatever is present. And then finally, we shift our awareness even more deeply inward, discovering that place within ourself that is calm and still, that spiritual room, the essential room. All the different words, God, self, spiritual beingness, true nature, Buddha nature. So many words to describe this one true self. We simply drop down into that place of inner stillness. And as we take 2 full minutes in the silence, I invite you to simply notice. Notice what insights come up, what intuitions come up. And perhaps even more important than that, during this 2 minutes of silence, just be aware of what it feels like to be grounded in your beingness, to be rooted in this place of inner stillness as we take 2 minutes together in the silence. Tuning into the frequency of gratitude, grateful to know that there is one power and one presence, and knowing that this power is my life and the life of every living being on planet Earth and beyond. So we are grateful for any insights received. We are grateful for a deeper awareness of who and what we truly are. And so as we begin to bring our awareness back into this time and space, we do so by knowing in the realm of spirit, it is already done. We simply open up now to the infinite possibilities. We release it, we let it go, and we bring our awareness back into this time and space and gently open our eyes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. That is a simple process, yet so profound in the comfort and the nurturing and the beingness of who we are. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
I'm really excited for this because this way that we create this conscious creation is really how we show up in a responsible way and how we show up for the planet, how we show up for why we incarnated here. It
Mm-hmm.
really just brings us back to the basics. I feel really calm and at peace. And those rooms each felt different. And that awareness right there truly illustrates the importance of that silence, that inward connection. So wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here with you.
So this is a beautiful process, and you actually have a special offer that goes much deeper into it, more beyond the hour that we spent today. This has 8 modules. You have a conscious creation course. It's actually part of a bundle of 3 courses. And everyone who's watching and listening, scroll down on this webpage and check it out. This is an incredible gift from TJ because this is such an affordable process, an affordable package that will allow you to work with these principles and a couple of other principles. So TJ, tell us about the items, the courses in this bundle.
Yeah, so as part of this bundle, I've created 3 courses based on my 3 books, Conscious Being, Conscious Recovery, and Conscious Creation. So obviously we've spent today talking about conscious creation mostly, and this is really a deeper dive into that through video and through written exercise, and then allowing yourself to actually do the 5-step process, not just to intellectually understand it, right? So that really is, these modules allow you to take time and to really drop in and do the activities associated with them. So it's changed my life. It's changed my life in ways that I could have never imagined. As a matter of fact, if you would have asked me in 2011 or 2010, whenever it was when I started this, what I thought I wanted, it would be nowhere near as expansive as what has transpired. So this allows us to be in that frequency of shifting our life from unconscious to conscious creation. And what a beautiful thing that is.
Shifting from unconscious to conscious creation. We are creating our world whether we're aware of it or not, and this fully puts us in the driver's seat. Thank you so much for that. Again, I want to go over that this course, sure, of course, people can go buy your books. Good on you. Congratulations. Kudos. These courses, though, that go into the books are just an extra supportive way for people to do the fundamentals, to put them into practice in their life, and to start seeing those life transforming results. So thank you for that. Everyone can scroll down and read what those are. Again, we have the Unharmable course, read about that and what that's all about, the Conscious Creation course, and the Conscious Being course.
Yeah.
This is how we move into New Earth, and it is how we step into the adult, the spiritual adults that we are. Thank you so much. Would you like to add anything else about these 3 courses?
Yeah, I mean, really not so much about the courses, but really about the sort of the emphasis of my work and usually people will say, how do you want to close? And it's kind of the same message. And it really is at the root of all of these, conscious being, conscious recovery, and conscious creation. The Unharmable course is actually based on the work of conscious recovery. I call it unharmable because I think it's really nice to acknowledge, if we are someone who has been in an addiction, that there's still this place within us that's unharmed and unharmable. So all of those courses and all of my books and my life's work has led to really one thing, and that is, if no one's told you yet today, you are a whole and perfect being. You came into the world as an infinite being, a spark of divinity, and that is still the truth of who you are. So I love you and I appreciate you, and I hope you enjoy going through the courses. And it really is about self-discovery. It's about reconnecting and remembering who we really are.
And that is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom from your own walk in life. You have created this, and that is what makes this a valuable course and makes you a wonderful guide, because you've been through it and your trials and tribulations have resulted in this work, and your connection to your higher self and the guides that you are surrounded with, speaking through your intuition, is what helped it as well. You have given us all a really powerful process to take into our lives. I'm really excited about it, and I know other people are as well. So thank you, TJ. This has been wonderful. And as we say goodbye, you did say final thoughts, but I'm going to give you one more time. Final thoughts.
Well, I'm going to just, because I already kind of gave my final thoughts, I just want to say very simply, love is who you are. Everything else is the illusion. And we no longer have to believe the illusion because we know who we really are.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, TJ Woodward, for your incredible work on planet Earth. And
Thank
thank
you.
you everyone for watching us. Again, you can check out TJ's work in his special offer right here on this webpage, or in the description box of wherever you're watching or listening to this video. Thank you so much, everyone. Your light shines bright. You have some incredible tools to put into action through your silence and heart space. Namaste.
Mhm.
This has been a presentation of New Earth One Network, your home for New Earth living. Access information, education, and videos on living from the heart in Unity Consciousness. Visit newearth1.com.